Hi, guys. Thank you for joining us for our Bible study. We're running just a few minutes late, but I don't think we're too far behind. Some of us had some issues with traffic. I guess what we're going to maybe try to do is set a little bit of an earlier time because we've had traffic issues like for 3 weeks in a row now, it seems like. Hey, Jennifer is due. But anyway, but thank you for bearing with us. And if you're with us live, please join in and comment and interact. If you're not with us live and you see the red thing over the head or my head, then you can just still comment hashtag. Hey, Sherry. Okay. So if you were with us last week, we talked about distractions, and today really is kind of a continuation of that because it's about something that can distract us, and that's the people that we spend our time with. You all probably heard your grandparents say things to you like, well, if you lay down with dogs, you're going to get up with fleas. That kind of stuff is true. We are who we spend our time with. We are what we spend our time doing. And I think this is scripture that we read last week, but of course, any scripture is worth reading more than once. But 1 John 2:15 is what we're going to start with. 2:15 through 17. And it says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abide forever. It is so easy. Hey, Brenda Faye. It is so easy to get caught up with the things of the world. And there's things that aren't necessarily, like we talked about last week, they're not necessarily that they're bad, but when they become your focus instead of God, then they're bad. And just some things that I was thinking about today is, I know people who they don't wear makeup and they don't wear dresses. I mean, they only wear dresses. And, and sometimes we see people like that and we think, it's just a little extreme. And makeup is not bad, and pants are not bad as long as you're dressing modestly, and you can dress modestly in a dress too. But the point is they know. I mean, I know that there are some religions or whatever, that believe that way, but some people personally make these choices because they know that for them, certain things are a slippery slope, so they avoid it. Some people don't have any TVs in their home because that's a slippery slope for them, and they avoid it. I don't necessarily think that these things they're bad, and they're probably, things that are kind of extreme, but the point is know what your slippery slope is.
Right.
And avoid it. I remember years ago, my mom and I were driving down the road, and I looked up and I saw a billboard, and I think it was advertising outdoor chairs. And I said, "Oh, I need some of those." And even as I'm saying it, I thought, "No, I don't. I don't really need." But that's the power of advertising. Is to get us to think we want things that we don't really need. And some of us are more susceptible than others. Obviously, had I had money that day, I would have gone and bought chairs I didn't need. So, but that's kind of how the devil works too. He wants to get maybe something that he starts tempting us with isn't a bad thing, but we start putting it in the wrong place, and then we get out of where we need to be. So that's kind of it. I'm going to tie that into where we're going today. But when we're talking about avoiding temptation, I want to read Matthew 26 through 41. Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And I think it was last Thursday or the Thursday before that, we talked about how we are just but flesh. We are weak. And that's why we need to avoid that temptation. And we need to know what those things are for us. And we'll read one other thing, and then we'll get into what we're talking about today. James 4:7 says, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And that's the key right there, is to resist the devil. And one way we resist that is by being proactive, like we said, avoiding things that we know that we don't need to be around. And with all that said, the people that we spend our time with probably the biggest influence on our life. So who are you spending your time with? Who are your friends?
Right.
We've talked about, I've seen the things where people have been married for 50 years and they start to resemble each other. And I can't even remember how it goes now, but my mom or dad, one, have a little mark on their nose, and after almost, 60 years of marriage, not quite that long, but pretty close.
Next year,
59 years of marriage. Now the other one has a spot in the same spot, and I can't remember which one had it first. But the point is who you spend your time with. You told me that some little spot on your nose. It was years ago you shared that with me. But anyway, I didn't want to be. But the point is who you spend your time with. And if you ever noticed, I've seen it in other people. Like when people I know will start hanging out with different people, they'll start picking up like maybe mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
I've caught it with myself.
I do the same. Like with, I know it sounds silly, but like with my country or Southern accent. If I'm around people that don't speak that way, I don't usually. But if I get with my family, it's pert near, it's coming in a storm, I begin to talk.
We pick up those habits. And I hear people say, well, Jesus came to save the sinners. Well, he did. But you're not going to win them over when you're doing the same thing they do. Or when one of my sons got saved, and I'm not going to get into the drinking thing. I personally believe it's wrong. But when one of my sons got saved, one of his friends, who was also a new convert, said, well, you think drinking's wrong? And, my son agrees it's probably, it's not the right thing to do. But rather than get into a debate with this young man, here's how he left it. And I was really proud of this answer. He said, if I'm down at the river with these guys drinking on Saturday, it ain't going to mean a thing when I invite them to church on Sunday.
Exactly.
So when he got saved, he didn't drop all of his lost friends. He still stays in contact with them. I think some of them he still hunts with sometimes. But the majority of who he hung out with changed.
Right. That made me think of something, and I can't remember the study, but it's a study I've been involved in recently where we're not, your son handled things the right way. We're not to, now that we're saved, to lord it over others, or but we are to show them that we're different. We're different. We're not perfect and better than and that kind of thing, but just different.
Has to be a difference.
Right, and they need to see the difference. They don't necessarily have to be beaten in the head with the difference.
Right.
But they need to see it.
And if you're going into a bar to tell people about Jesus, you may not touch any alcohol. You may not do anything you're not supposed to do. You may literally be handing out tracts. But for the people that see you there that you don't talk to, what's the impression? No, you can stand outside that bar if you want to and witness to them when they come out. Your friends that still frequent these places, you don't have to drop them, but because if you drop them, obviously you can't talk to them and win them over. But you do have to change where you see them at. You do have to change the time and the things that you do with them.
Well, your friends will change as your lifestyle changes. Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, the point is if you have no lost people you associate with, who you, so I mean, you don't like cut yourself off, but you recognize that whoever you hang out with, that's who influences your thinking. You pick up their habits. So, and this is going to be a short study unless y'all all speak up. But what got, as I was flipping through my Bible today, and I didn't know what to do with it all. I was actually asking. I just had no leading. And the day I was flipping through my Bible, I'd done my Bible study and everything, but I was flipping through it. I had this one thing marked, and I stopped and read it, and it really kind of spoke to me. And it's Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verses 9 through 14. So when they are, can't see with them or without them, when they are coming to the land which the Lord thy God hath giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or use the divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter of a witch, or a charmer of a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard or near, I know how do you say that, necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. Because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out before thee. And it might not be as obvious to you how to tie that into what I'm saying, and I'll get to that. But first, I want to just touch on a few other things. Boy, there's a lot there, right there. He's telling if I'm understanding correctly, he's telling the Israelites when they come into this land, not to pick up their habits. But the Canaanite, and I guess it was the Canaanites. But anyway, they're losing their land for the things that they practice. It's basically witchcraft, and it says to make your children pass through the fire. That's like if I'm not mistaken, that is like where you're sacrificing your child. Well, what do you think we're doing today in those abortion clinics? We're sacrificing our children for the God of self.
Yeah, for our lifestyle. I was reading earlier, for our imaginations of our own heart, because that's what we're following instead of God's law. What's best for us, or what we think is best for us.
But they're losing their land. God's taking it from them and giving it to the Israelites, or because of what they've done. And what are we doing? I mean, we're doing the same thing. So I think America is on shaky ground. But that aside, like I said, there's a lot there. The reason this stuck out to me is God is warning them, don't. I've taken this from them and given it to you because of what they've done. Now, when you come to this land, do not do what they do. And we read all through the Old Testament about how many times do they do what? They pick up their habits.
Right.
So, and we see what a rocky road that they had. And sometimes we look at them and go, they're so crazy. Well, what are we? We're just as stubborn and hard-headed.
Right.
And I think, like I said, what we spend our time doing and who we spend our time with has a lot to do with.
I'm studying in Jeremiah right now, and I don't have the historical knowledge. Like, I don't know where at in time it is, but I know God's pretty upset with the people in Israel, and he's bad things are coming. And it's because I didn't realize it until what you just said kind of put it together for me, because they began to pick up those ways, those false gods, and they followed after their own hearts, and it touched me, as that's kind of where we are in America right now.
Right.
And at that point where I'm reading, God was done. There was no more chances.
Right.
He was done, and the things that were going to happen to them were awful. So I beg you, people who are listening, let us pray and let us turn our ways back to the Lord before it's too late for our country.
Right. Well, this kind of goes along even really, because just like we're influenced by who we spend our time with, we're influenced by who we put in office.
Yes.
And that influences everything in our country.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and we have a responsibility, forgive me, this is not political, but we have a responsibility to vote. And to vote, we can't possibly truly know who these people are, but we can look at how they voted on issues, whether it was godly or not godly. And so we can make an uneducated guess, or I guess we could pray and let the Lord lead us. That would be the better answer. But we have an obligation to take that responsibility seriously, and because I think of the horrible things that are happening now, and not to even touch on anything, but especially children, and I'm not just talking about abortion, just period, the things that are happening to our children, and somebody put those people in office. So that's a big responsibility that we need to take seriously.
Absolutely.
And I know we often think, well, my one low vote's not going to count.
You don't know.
Right.
And
if everybody feels that way, nobody votes.
Right. And I believe the most important thing we can do is pray, but we also need to walk out our prayers.
Right.
So, in other words, if I am praying for a promotion at work, but I'm not putting in any effort.
Right.
How can I be praying for the right people to get into office and I don't go vote,
Right. And even you have a responsibility to do the research.
Right.
Because like I said, we truly don't know who these people are, but we can see how they voted in the past, what they seem to stand for.
Right. Right. And we got, again, this is not a political thing, but so we're not endorsing, but you pray and you research, and I'll leave it at that because I'm biting my tongue because I have strong feelings about this, but I'm biting my tongue. But I remember as a kid, now you were older than me, so I don't remember it as much as with you, but me and Jamie, who was the youngest sister, that Mama and Daddy would get the little looks and the little, comments because they would be concerned when we were hanging out with someone that they didn't like. And now I get it because they saw things in them that they did not want us to be influenced by. And
I saw that look from Mom when I brought home my first boyfriend.
and you probably, but I was just shocked, so I wasn't as in tune,
Right.
So
unfortunately, much like us, the children of God, unfortunately, when we're in those young teen years, we don't think our parents know what they're talking about.
Right.
And it's just amazing to me how that resembles our very relationship with God. God, I got this. I know he's not perfect or she's not perfect, but, so it's kind of the same relationship.
It's funny to me. I'm in my 50s, and all of my children are grown, and still something to this day. I mean, actually, something this week. But something will come to my mind, and I'm like, oh, now I get it that my parents did or said.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that a lot when I had children. But you would think that now that they're grown and gone, I'd be over those epiphanies, but I'm not.
Right.
So, which is good because that means I'm still learning. But I guess I'm a slow learner. And it's not that I'm a slow learner because it's that I'm a stubborn person, and that's where our problem lies. We're stubborn and prideful people because, and there's someone in my life very close to me that I talk to a lot, and I tell them, I'm not putting your friends down. I think they're decent for the most part. They're decent people, but none of them are saved. None of them are in church. This is not where you need to be.
Right. And the lifestyle that they're living is not productive to.
Right. So, and on some level, this person recognizes that, but what keeps them from stubborn?
And I know we're getting off topic a little, but you mentioned prideful. A lot of times we don't think of ourselves as prideful because we have this picture in our mind that prideful is somebody who's beautiful and wealthy and has everything and they're proud of it. But no, just the fact that you think you know better about something than God does. I mean, that's like, to me, the description of prideful.
Exactly. We are extremely prideful, and I don't have. One of my kids tells me all the time. He's like, "I'm not spoiled." I'm like, "Honey, you're the most spoiled one we have." He's like, "I'm not spoiled. We don't have money, baby. We didn't have to have money to spoil you. You're spoiled,
right?
We don't have. You don't got to be beautiful or the top of the world to be prideful." And I think that is probably. That the pride and the stubborn, I think that kind of goes together, and I probably think that is probably, as a rule, most people's pride. It's mine.
Mm-hmm.
So, Proverbs 13:20. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed.
That's it.
Doesn't get any clearer. So you think about, and this is not I saw something a while back, and I thought this was neat, and it said, "Where do you want to be in 5 years?" And they said, "No, look at your friends. You see where they are? That's where you'll be in 5 years." And I may not have worded that exactly the way it was, but that's the point. And you're not to model yourself after anybody. You're to strive to be like Christ, which none of us will ever be like, but that's what our goal is. But you need to be around people that are loving Him.
And the more Christ-like your mannerisms and behavior, the more those friends will drop away too. So, I mean, if you could get it in your mind that just do what you know, we've said this a million times, just do what you know to do is right.
Right.
And it's kind of like God will help you take care of the rest of it.
Right.
so many people think that they can't go to church or they can't become a Christian until they get rid of all this stuff in their life.
No, because he's going to be the one that cleans it up.
Right, because you can't clean it up.
You can't.
If you could have cleaned it up, we wouldn't have needed Jesus.
Exactly.
We need Jesus.
Exactly. 2 Corinthians 6:14, I think, is the next and the last scripture I was going to read. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteous... Y'all, I am so sorry. The lights in here it's just not good, and it's hard for me to see with or without the glasses. What fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? When we think of that verse a lot, when we think about marriage, believers and non-believers, and if you're not dating, if you're a believer and you're not dating a non-believer, then you don't got to worry about marrying a non-believer. But I think it's all the way around. I think it's with the people that we spend our time with, even the people we do business with. And you've mentioned that before, and I hadn't thought of it before you mentioned it in that respect. But if I'm going to, let's say, I'm going to get my carpet cleaned, and here's a reputable carpet cleaner over here, but here's another carpet cleaner who I know is saved. Why wouldn't I give my money to that person?
Right. Because, and I want to start a business about this, but we should give our business to Christians, because first off, you have an expectation that if they're Christians, hopefully they're going to be running their business in a way that's fair and right, although that's not always the case, but that's an expectation. But also, I know it's silly, but I had this hairdresser one time, and I've loved her, and she did my hair for years, and she was a nice lady. But not only, I can't speak for her salvation. She didn't go to church, but she did some things with her money that she talked about freely that were not godly. I'm not talking about drugs or nothing like that. I'm just saying her fun stuff was scary stuff to me. And so it just hit me one day. Every time I buy from an unsaved person, that money is not going towards God's kingdom in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Hopefully, if you buy from a Christian person or you do this business, hopefully first they're tithing. But second, they're investing in things that are godly, hopefully.
Right. So, to kind of sum things up, we can be distracted by the people that we spend our time with. We need to be aware that we're not going to change them as much as they're going to change us. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to be a godly. Of course, but if you're lost and I'm saved, I just got saved, and I'm still doing all the same things with you, I am not going to win you over to Christ.
No.
But if you see a difference in me,
right, we're still friendly. You're still kind to me. We still talk, but we're not going out drinking together or whatever it is.
Right.
We're not going out doing these things together. Then I see the difference.
Right. And then when I talk to you about Jesus, when I ask you to church, it's going to have more of an impact.
Right. I'm going to have more respect for what you're saying.
Right.
Because otherwise, even though I may not tell you, in my head I'm saying,
what's different about your life?
I mean, you were right there with me last night doing whatever we were doing.
Right. And maybe you didn't partake of everything I did, but you were in that environment. And that's still kind of and if I put myself in that environment long enough, guess what will eventually happen?
You are not taking
the
same stuff. Yeah.
Right.
We're always leading somebody one way or the other.
Right. So watch where you spend your time. I'm not telling you to cut off your lost friends and family, because, of course, if you do that, that's not being a witness. But be aware that you're going to pick up the habits of the people that you spend your time with.
Guard your own heart.
Right.
And like you said at the very beginning, know where your weaknesses or your vulnerabilities are.
Right.
And stay away from those particular things altogether.
Evidently, I need to stay away from any forms of advertising. But I will share a couple of other things with you that are kind of off topic, if nobody minds. When I walk, I listen to sermons sometimes. And I heard one last week and one this morning that both had an impact on me. The one last week was this woman had been married for 50 years, 40 years. She was saved. Her husband was lost. She had continuously prayed for her husband. He traveled. He was for work. He was in Florida for business, and she got the call that he'd been killed in a wreck.
Mm.
So about a month later, someone called her and asked for her husband, and she explained he had passed away. And he asked, well, when did that happen? And she said, well, he was in Florida and he was in an accident on such and such. Anyway, he was in an accident. The man said, well, what day was that? And she told him the date. And he said, I've got wonderful news for you. He said, your husband was saved.
Mm.
He said, I'm a businessman. He said, I dress in a suit. I drive a nice car. That's how I go to work. That's my lifestyle. But this one day, God said, park that car in Thumb. And he got out and he parked his car, and that woman's husband picked him up and he led him to the Lord before he let him out. Now, what's amazing to me is that he got led. Of course, the most wonderful part is he was led to the Lord before he died, and how also awesome that God found a way to let her know that what she had been praying for had happened. That was wonderful. But here's what amazes me. I can see me driving down the road and God saying, park it and get out and thumb. And I'd be like, are you for real? I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but what? What? How wonderful his obedience. And I want to be that kind of obedient. I want, I'm not there by any means, but man, that's what I want. And I want, if there's someone that God is placing in the life of one of my loved ones, that they would be that kind of obedient. Because I would talk myself right out of it.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't come from the Lord. That's crazy.
I was just trying to get you hurt.
I know, exactly. So I thought that just amazed me.
And if it were not for his obedience,
Probably that was his last chance.
I always say I want to be like the woman at the well after she met Jesus, because I just want to go tell everybody. That's what I want. That's what I want people to say at my funeral. She was just like the woman at the well after she met Jesus.
Right. So y'all, that is my prayer.
That
I will stop talking myself out.
Yes.
And that God can trust me with such assignments,
Yes.
because he'll know I'll carry them through. But I know I'm so far from being there at this point.
I have a friend who wrote a book. I think it's called Divine Intervention. And I was just talking about this the other day with someone, but that's what her book is about. It's about those times in her life where God said, do this, and the results, or people in her life that did it and how it helped her. But my husband in the last couple of months went to work in a lady's house, and I don't remember the details, and I won't share them anyway, but basically she asked him, did you hear of the person who died last year, doing so and so? And he's like, yeah, I heard of that. She said, that was my husband. And she went on to share her story with him. He was saved either the day before or 2 days before he got in this weird situation and passed away. So, I mean, God is amazing, the things that he does, the chances that he gives us.
Absolutely. But don't wait if God has called you, because you might not get, God was merciful with this man, and with this man you spoke of, but don't take that chance. But the other story I wanted to tell you was today, and I didn't get to hear the whole sermon because I didn't walk my whole time today, so I cut it short. But what I did hear, he was talking about how the devil lies, and the devil will even give you evidence to his lies. And I might not be remembering exactly how it went, but when Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, and then they took his coat and it was dipped in blood and took it back to his father, and his father believed that he had been, killed by wild animals. The devil gave evidence to that lie.
Mm.
And that just kind of had a profound wow. So you think about that. Just because you see it, if it's not what's in that book, it ain't real.
Right.
So just remember
and if it doesn't line up with what's in the Bible.
Exactly. So just remember that. And anybody else have anything they want to share? All right. Well, we thank you for being here today, and we will be back next Thursday. Oh, we had some more people. I'm so bad about
I get caught up and I don't think to look. But thank you for joining us, Lisa. Hey, and we will see y'all all next week. Bye.